everyone, and welcome back to Brink of Speed. My name is Mike, and today we are going to talk about 5 tips and rules for buying a Chevy C7 Corvette. And I just want to give you basically my 5 rules and tips for buying a Corvette because it is a very important decision that you're making, and you want to make sure that you make the right choice. So, my first tip is you must decide first if you want to buy a brand new Corvette or a used Corvette. And basically there's 2 types of people out there. There are the type that will only buy new cars and the type that will buy used pretty much every time. Now, both are a big decision. If you decide to go with a new car, you better get your butt on the computer and do a lot of research about a dealership that you feel like you'd be able to trust. If you already have one, great. Go to that Chevy dealership because you already know you can trust them and deal with them. If you're buying used, you actually have quite a few more things to consider. You definitely need to consider what type of person you're willing to buy from, if you're even willing to buy from an individual, or if you're only going to stick with basically a dealership and buy a used car from them, or if you're going to go maybe on Auto Trader or some sort of website like that and try and find a car that isn't in your state and buy from them. So my first rule is you should always try and find a Corvette with very low miles on it if you're buying used. In my opinion, it's just better that way. You pretty much know that there's only been one owner, and you can pretty much tell by the low mileage that this person really didn't do much other than get out and drive it on nice days, and that's about it. And so most of the time, those type of people aren't going to use and abuse the car. They're basically just out pleasure driving. My next tip is do your research and figure out which model you truly think you need and, of course, want. Get online and look at all the different options and packages for the C7 Corvette. This is very important because you know that there are literally hundreds of different options. There are 3 different packages that start at 1LT, 2LT, and 3LT, and then there's packages inside of those packages. So you've got the Z51 in the Stingray. You've got the Z07 in the Grand Sport and Z06, and then you also have the ZTK in the ZR1. So there are quite a few things that you need to really look at and consider and try and figure out what you think would best suit your needs. Now, my second rule is don't buy a Z06 or ZR1 just to say that you have one. Those cars are way too powerful for most people. And honestly, you guys know by now that I actually feel like I should have gotten a Grand Sport, not because the Z06 is too powerful for me to handle, especially out on the road, but I am a track type person, and so I would rather have less power on the track. I'd actually rather have more power on the road, but less power on the track, and I'd be willing to compromise and have less power on the road just so that I could have a better car for the track. So with that being said, what you need to do is you need to write down a list of what you think you're going to use this Corvette for, and then figure out whether you truly need a high horsepower Corvette or if you can deal with, which is already a high horsepower Corvette, but something that only has 455 to 460 horsepower. Now, my number 3 tip kind of coincides with number 1. Make sure you do more research to find where you want to buy one from, or you may decide to buy online. In this scenario, make sure you do even more research. So a good example of that is you probably know that me and my cousin, we buy Porsches, we buy old Corvettes, we buy, cars for people, and we're constantly buying cars from the auction sites and also online car sites. And we always have to do way more research before we buy something that isn't in the same city as us, because we can't really go and look at it And so you want to make sure that you do lots and lots of research about a car that you're buying online. Now, my number 3 rule is don't ever buy a Corvette that has been modified. I actually broke that rule when I bought my 2009 Z06, and if I had it all to do over again, I would not do it again, because I've always told myself it's never a good idea to be driving a car that somebody else has modified. You never know what they did to it exactly unless you have a list of that. But even if you do have a list, they obviously did that for a reason, because they wanted to hot rod the car. And with that being said, why would you want to buy a car that you know for a fact someone hot rodded? And I broke that rule. I'll never do it again, and neither should you. Now, my number 4 tip is, once you've picked which Corvette you think you want, go drive one and make sure you really want it after you drive it. And that kind of coincides with 1 and 3. So I've always said to a dealership, if you won't let me drive this car, then I would never buy from you, because it is absolutely insane to buy a car without driving it first, especially when you have different types of Corvettes that you can buy. One with, a very good amount of horsepower, one with a lot of horsepower, and one with even more than that. So if you can afford all the way up to a ZR1, I feel like if you drive the Z06 and you don't think it's enough horsepower, then obviously the ZR1 is what you're going to want. But most people that get in a Grand Sport or a Stingray are going to feel like that is plenty of horsepower and they don't need any more. Every once in a while, you're going to have someone that decides that's not enough, and they're going to either jump up to the Z06 or the ZR1. But make sure you go drive that car, because you may like the horsepower, but you might not like something else about it. So figure it out, drive it, and then you'll know. Now, my 4th rule is don't ever buy a Corvette with several previous owners, especially if the warranty is already expired. That was another thing that I did with my 2009 Z06. It had 3 owners, and I felt like that was a little bit sketchy, but I wanted to trust that it would still be a decent car. As you guys know, I had nothing but issues with that car. I'm just super happy that Corvette World took care of me, gave me a great value when I turned it in or traded it in for my new one, and took care of me. But if I were you, if it says more than 1 owner, I would just completely say I don't want that car. My 5th tip is, if you've decided to buy new, right now is probably the best time to do so, as they are currently giving huge discounts on C7 Corvettes. If you, however, decided to buy used, whether it's online or through a dealership, make sure you find a place like Corvette World here in Dallas that won't buy anything unless it's in top condition. Guys and gals, this is super important. Corvette World literally will not buy a Corvette unless it is absolutely immaculate. They will literally go to like an auction or some other site to look at 20 to 30 Corvettes. And out of those 20 or 30 Corvettes, if they don't find any of them to meet their criteria, they will leave without buying a single Corvette and come home empty-handed, which is very disappointing for them, because they like to keep their showroom floor very full. And sometimes they can't do that because they expect the highest quality to put in that showroom for you to buy from them. So make sure that whoever you're dealing with has that same state and frame of mind when buying their Corvettes for you to purchase from them. Now, my 5th rule is always go into the dealership with a great plan of action and get yourself pre-approved for financing from your bank or your credit union. This is very important. It gives you all the power when you walk into the showroom floor talking with the salesman, the sales manager, and the finance manager. You have all the power if you walk in there and you've already been pre-approved, you already have a loan, you already know what your payment's going to be, and you know exactly how much money you want to spend. That way you can just negotiate price on that car. So I hope each and every one of you guys enjoyed these rules and tips for buying a new C7 Corvette or a used C7 Corvette. Guys, now's the time to get out there and buy one. It's going to be a while before we get the C8. There's great deals out there, $20,000, $30,000 off of these cars. But with that being said, if you enjoyed these tips and rules, give me a big thumbs up. If you have not joined the Brink of Speed community yet, make sure you hit that red subscribe and bell notification so that you're notified when my new content comes out. I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you out on the road.